Hello, my name is Cathy Magee and my co-presenter for this introductory film is Fran Foreman. This first film provides an overview introduction to a series of professional learning films which have been developed by members of the Addressing Dyslexia Toolkit working group, as well as practitioners who received their GTCS Professional Recognition Awards in Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice in January 2020 from the Deputy First Minister. The films have been made possible with the support of Scottish Government as part of their grant to Dyslexia Scotland. They were originally intended as professional learning events, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we decided to make a series of films instead. These films can, of course, be used by individuals or by schools, local authorities, and regional improvement collaboratives as part of their in-service professional development. The films are aimed at specialist teachers and probationer mentors who wish to deepen their own knowledge in dyslexia and inclusive practice and to train others in their areas.
Hello, this has been a collaborative partnership which has focused on supporting practitioners, schools and local authorities to improve support for dyslexic learners within an inclusive school community through the following activities. We focused on engaging with learners, primary and secondary, students, teachers, local authorities, parents and carers, the development and publication of guidance and information, the publication of collaboratively developed free professional learning resources, importantly, which are set within the Scottish context for education, and support to learners, initial teacher education establishments, early year learning and childcare, schools, local authorities, and parent and carer groups. All of this was created under the Making Sense programme, which ran from 2014 to the launch date at 2020. In response to the 2014 Education Scotland report, Making Sense, Education for Children and Young People with Dyslexia in Scotland, this collaborative 3-year project was designed to provide sustainable support to educational practitioners, schools and local authorities, with the main aims of improving the quality of the educational experiences and outcomes for learners with dyslexia, helping schools and local authorities meet their statutory and professional duties, along with teachers, improve their understanding and practice of inclusion within the whole school community, maximise their use of improvement methodology, collaborative inquiry and effective self-evaluation to improve practice and outcomes for learners with dyslexia, and evidence the impact of methodology, and really importantly to build capacity to make all of this work sustainable within that whole school community. One very important aspect of this work was that we focused on inclusive practice because we know that it supports a wide range of learners, not only those with dyslexia. The Making Sense programme had 5 main focus areas, which almost matched with the 5 recommendations apart from the last one. So if I go through this slide, you'll see the first recommendation was to provide information and guidance. And for that, we created a whole range of publications and resources. The Addressing Dyslexia Toolkit was refreshed, and we held a range of events, some of which were conversation events, professional learning events. For recommendation 2, the focus was on professional learning, very much linked to recommendation 1. And as you can see, the overlap here is with the refreshed toolkit. We created a route map originally, and which led then to the development of the 3 modules. They are the incremental modules. We had masterclasses, conferences, linked always with it, Dyslexia Scotland's education conference held every year. We attended inset sessions at different local authorities and within schools, collegiate sessions, and we have a range of information and resources on the National Improvement Hub. Recommendation 3 was looking at initial teacher education, and again, it links with 1 and 2. So the modules, particularly the first module, was developed with a probationer teacher, a student teacher in mind, you know, really for anybody that was really just trying to find out information about dyslexia. We held some events with initial teacher education, and we had some publications. The fourth recommendation really looked at inclusive practice. Within the actual report, it focused on dyslexia-friendly practice. What we established very early on is we were looking at inclusive practice. And obviously there was, we spent quite a bit of time marrying up these two approaches to make sure that the dyslexia-friendly approaches were, the needs of that were still being met within the inclusive practice approach. And again, as you can see here, there's a crossover between the different types of events and sessions that we had with the toolkit, the modules, masterclasses, events, and we created a new resource, which was a professional learning resource for dyslexia inclusive practice, which I will talk about throughout the presentations. The recommendation 5 was really focused on data, and this was the one area which the work streams for the Making Sense working group was slightly different. We used all of the combined work for the 4 work streams to link it into this recommendation, with the hope that stakeholders, if they're engaging with all of the resources, through that improved understanding and deepened understanding, the data collection, the data information, the analysis of it will also improve. This slide just gives you an overview of, in a little bit more detail, of the types of the methodology and the process the Making Sense program went through. It was obviously, the foundations of it was linked to a literature review and inspection reports. We had a range of engagements. It absolutely included opportunities for practitioner feedback, sharing of good practice. We had, as I've mentioned, a range of professional learning resources have been developed that are within the Addressing Dyslexia Toolkit. We had professional learning opportunities, as in the masterclasses and the development of the pilot for the GTC Professional Recognition Program. And the last thing we created for this program was the Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice Professional Learning Resource. This slide really just shows you a screenshot of what the Addressing Dyslexia Toolkit looks like now. It was relaunched in 2017, so if you haven't had an opportunity to explore it, you know, we'd really recommend that you do so. It's split into 9 sections, and they are, you know, looking at exploring what is dyslexia, the Scottish context for the inclusive education in Scotland, supporting learners and families, assessing and monitoring, transitions, resources, professional development, and there's also information about the toolkit which has some downloadable professional learning activities. Each section within the toolkit has some reflective questions that you can explore and really work through to see how you're engaging with each section and has there been any impact for you. The professional learning modules that we developed in partnership with the Open University, Scottish Government, obviously in Education Scotland. And the really important thing about these modules, as you'll hear probably repeatedly through the different presentations of this series, is that they're set within the Scottish context. We did not have anything like this before. They are very much linked to the Scottish working definition of dyslexia, which is very broad, and also the Addressing Dyslexia Toolkit. You can see on the right-hand side of this slide that we've got some images for the collection of the modules that we have created. And obviously this presentation and the other presentations will give you more information on those modules. One of the main aims of the modules when they were developed was to provide an opportunity of high quality professional learning for practitioners, for teachers in Scotland to engage in that was free. Because they're free, they are not accredited through a university, but they are developed at a master's level of learning. And the aims of the modules are to encourage meaningful career-long professional learning to improve the outcomes for children and young people, primarily obviously with dyslexia, but there is a really big focus on inclusive practice. Providing free and accessible opportunities to engage in professional learning. So these can be accessed anytime learning to suit the needs of the practitioners. They will develop a deeper learning and understanding of dyslexia and inclusive practice. They provide opportunities for participants to reflect on their practice regarding dyslexia and inclusion. And they encourage familiarity with and make appropriate use of the Addressing Dyslexia Toolkit. And as you can see by this image, they're incremental. You really do need to work through all three sequentially. And at the end of that, if you choose to, you may then apply for professional recognition. Within Module 3, there is a practitioner inquiry activity that will support that application process. All of the professional learning that has taken part, has been included within the Making Sense programme, is linked to the National Model of Professional Learning. As education professionals, you will engage in professional learning to stimulate your thinking and to ensure your practice is critically informed and up to date. The model of professional learning identifies the key principles and features of effective learning that will build up capacity and promote collaborative practices. The model provides a shared language and aspiration, informing the provision, structure, and nature of learning. And it also outlines the kinds of learning that will empower, enable you to meet the needs of your learners. So as I've mentioned earlier, all of the professional learning activities have been developed with this model in mind. We have refreshed all of the modules to meet the new standards which will come into force in August 2021. So you can be confident that the modules are up to date and will support your annual PRD or ERD, depending on what it's called in your local authority, your discussions with your colleagues and line managers.
In September 2018, Dyslexia Scotland received this Professional Learning Award for organisations from GTCS in recognition of the high quality, effective professional learning which Dyslexia Scotland offers teaching practitioners. We're in the process of applying to the GTCS to become a programme board, building on the learning from the Dyslexia Inclusive Practice pilot programme that Fran mentioned earlier. If successful, we will offer a Dyslexia Scotland Dyslexia Inclusive Practice Professional Recognition Programme for up to 30 teachers per year. You can see on this slide when we received the award in 2018. We'll talk about the range of resources and programmes for teachers that this award applies to on the next slide. On this slide, you'll see some examples of the many professional learning resources and programmes that are on offer. The hyperlinks will take you to the relevant resources. So when you have the presentation, these are live hyperlinks. So at the top there's the top 10 resources for teachers. That includes the links, the outline of all the different resources that we've spoken about today and many others that Dyslexia Scotland has. The annual education conference is an opportunity for teachers to learn more about dyslexia as well as to contribute what they have learned and share with others. The other learning programmes that the GTCS Awards covers include the Addressing Dyslexia Toolkit, the 3 online badged Dyslexia Inclusive Practice modules, the Mission Superheroes Professional Learning Guide, which if you haven't seen, I really do recommend that you do. Now this is for primary school teachers. It's a range of different presentations, sample letters, and basically a whole kit for you to be able to run interactive workshops for primary school, primary 4 to 7 mainly, pupils, for teachers and for parents. There's an interactive guide, there's comics, there's even a USB and comics that you can actually request from Dyslexia Scotland. So please do have a look at that. The link takes you to the Addressing Dyslexia Toolkit section where the guide is hosted. The Meeting the Needs of Dyslexic Learners is a professional learning guide that we developed with GTCS last year in 2020. And the At Home with Dyslexia Scotland YouTube channel has a wide range of podcasts and videos for teachers, parents, children and young people and adults. And I really recommend that you look at that because there's lots of different films, about people talking about their own dyslexia, their own experience, which is really helpful for professional learning. We have arts awards for children and young people up to 25 years, which during the homeschooling periods, we found that lots of children and young people with dyslexia found these arts awards incredibly helpful because it was something that they could focus on and work on and get a real sense of achievement. And last but not least, we have downloadable fact sheet resources. We have over 32 of these free A4 leaflets about dyslexia, and also access to a dyslexia resource library at Dyslexia Scotland, which is online as well as at our centre in Stirling. On this slide, you'll see the range of different resources, some of which we've already spoken about, so the toolkit and the 3 different modules, but also a reading circle and a writing circle, which were developed by the Addressing Dyslexia Toolkit working group, and which are on the Addressing Dyslexia Toolkit. These are incredibly helpful resources to help you to work with children and with parents, children, young people and parents, to help them to understand the difficulties they may be having with their reading and also with their writing. And the resource there on the right is the one that Fran mentioned earlier, and there is a film specifically about how East Ayrshire Council used this resource, this Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice Professional Learning resource, incredibly helpful resource, and again, worth looking at the film, which you'll hear about more about how that was specifically used. These are the websites that we've designed, built and populated with the Dyslexia Scotland team. And here you see the home pages of, from left to right, the Addressing Dyslexia Toolkit, Dyslexia Scotland and Dyslexia Unwrapped. Dyslexia Unwrapped is the website for children and young people with dyslexia ages 8 to 18. In the case of the Addressing Dyslexia Toolkit, it was developed with the support of the Toolkit Working Group, chaired by Fran, and with Education Scotland's support too. There's ongoing website maintenance and support, and also that anyone who wants to contribute or give comments about the toolkit can send in their comments through a dedicated toolkit email address for practitioners so that they can add resources too. The working group has created a content and social media strategy, which also highlights content within the Addressing Dyslexia Toolkit, Dyslexia Unwrapped and Dyslexia Scotland. So if you haven't looked at these websites, I really do recommend that you do. The series of films that this film introduces were developed with the support of many of the practitioners shown in this photo. So 10 teaching professionals were awarded, as I mentioned earlier, the GTCS Professional Recognition in Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice in January 2020, following the 2017 to 2019 pilot. These films are examples of collaborative learning and sharing, building on the expertise of these professionals in this line. As mentioned at the start, this introductory film is the first of a series of 7 films. Each film will last around 30 minutes and will be presented by the practitioners named on this slide. So the first one is our one here. The films that were from 2 to 6 were developed by the members of the Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice Pilot Programme, so those that won the awards that we saw the photos of earlier, who received their GTCS Professional Recognition Awards in Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice. And the last film there, number 7, is developed by 2 members of our Addressing Dyslexia Toolkit working group, and Debbie is also one of the awardees of the Professional Recognition Award. They will be really interesting, the films, and I do highly recommend that you look at them all. They share their own experiences of the key elements of the Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice programme, covering modules 1, 2 and 3, or details of their own practitioner inquiry. The final film outlines how the Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice and Implementation resource, which was developed as part of the Making Sense programme, has been used in East Ayrshire. We hope that you find these films useful and that you share them with colleagues of your own authorities. Most of all, we hope that they inspire you to do the modules, use the resources, go on to do the Professional Recognition Award yourselves, and also to support the needs of learners with dyslexia.